AV in your ears, that's ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my voice Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you...
Hey there, folks. This is Mike Tramp from White Lion, and you're listening to the Fascination Podcast Street. Are you ready for this?
Yeah! AV in your ears, that's ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my voice Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Mike Tramp. Mike Tramp grew up in Denmark and became a national sensation in his home country with a band named Mabel. A few years after that, he decided to come to America and start the band White Lion. White Lion, in its heyday in the early to mid-'80s, sold millions and millions of records. Their sophomore album, Pride, went double platinum, selling more than 2 million copies in the U.S. alone. Mike has also, for the past 25 or so years, been a solo musician, releasing more than 16 solo albums, 2 of them in Danish. In this episode, we talk a little bit about Mike's time in the band Mabel back in Denmark and what made him come to America and start White Lion. We talk a little bit about the success of White Lion, and we do a little bit of a deep dive into the song When the Children Cry. Mike is such a nice guy, he even lets me play that song. And recently, 2023, he released Songs of White Lion. In 2024, he released Songs of White Lion Volume 2. And September 2025, Songs of White Lion Volume 3, where he updated and, in his words, refurbished some of White Lion's music to reflect how they are performed today, nearly 40 years later. And he even lets me play the new single from the most recent album, Songs of White Lion Volume 3. And that single is called Fight to Survive. I can't thank Mike Tramp enough. Dude, you are a badass. And this is my conversation with Mike Tramp from the bands Mabel, Freak of Nature, White Lion, and a massive solo artist with more than 16 albums all by himself.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Mike Tramp. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It is 100% my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, you know Mike Tramp as the founding member of White Lion and one of the members of Freak of Nature. Plus, Mike has a wonderful solo career that spans, like 30 years or something all by itself.
And I truly appreciate you mentioning that.
Oh, absolutely. You put out, like 16 albums by yourself or something?
That is correct.
Yeah, so that can't go unmentioned. Like that's the bulk of your career is by yourself.
Well, yeah, one would say so.
I would think so. So, Mike, what I like to do is I like to start from the beginning. It helps us understand how the guests got from where they were to where they are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I was born and raised on the other side of the mighty Atlantic Ocean in a little country called Denmark and the city of Copenhagen.
At what point did you make your way to America and why?
Well, I made my way to America in 1982. At that time, I had been professionally in the music business for about 7 years.
With Mabel?
With my first band, Mabel, which were an established band that for some reason or another were looking for a young, pretty face. They couldn't find one, but they got me. And they were 10 years older than me, already had a record deal, already had a house, already had a PA system, owned a truck. I mean, it was just one of those kind of things. And I came straight out of not finishing high school at age 15 and a half, go straight from my mom's little apartment into this band house. And I'm coming up on 50 years next year of 50th anniversary.
So wait, the band had their own house and you as a 15-year-old moved into this house?
Yeah, exactly. Without any letter from my mom and anything like that.
What were you doing for the band? Were you playing guitar? Were you singing? What were you doing?
Yeah, I came in as a singer and they put a guitar around my neck too that I, were jingling and jangling with. Sort of, I mean, I had been involved actively in sort of like music and theater in my local youth club, but it was just after school kind of stuff, just something to fill the hours in between when I wasn't doing playing soccer or climbing on roofs and making teenage kind of like trouble around the local neighborhood. And I just think one thing led to another that it sort of spilled over that I was somebody who enjoyed picking up an acoustic guitar, sitting on a bench around the campfire with the rest of the kids from the club and just singing songs and playing songs that everybody could sing along with. And it's somehow something that I took with me all the way up till to today.
All the way to today, indeed. When did you know that you could write songs? Because you have written, I mentioned 16 albums or whatever, but like you wrote these songs, and most of the songs, if not all of them, with White Lion and even Freaks of Nature, you are a songwriter. So when did you know you could write songs?
I actually feel that's a great question, and I feel it deserves a little bit more depth than just saying, well, at age, 15 and 3/4, I did the first song. It actually came quite quickly. From the second I walked into this house, it was signing on with the Marines. There were no way out. You had to sort of walk the plank all the way. So I took it very seriously from the second I was there. And the other guys were great musicians. We had a little bit of a recording studio. So I instantly fell into that. And I think within the first year, I was putting a song together.
Wow.
And that would, of course, just jump from one thing to another. And once I got going, it was almost on a daily basis that I was sitting there, writing and working out, and things would become songs. And by the time I was 18, I was writing all the songs for the band, and also at that time steering the band in an early version of what would be the first songs we would be playing when we arrived in New York in the summer of 82, the early birth of White Lion.
So besides you, was there anybody else from Mabel that was in White Lion?
No, it's just that we came to New York together in 82. And by the time we arrived in New York, we had changed the name to Lion. And we were now looking at what that sound that would be the 80s and all that stuff that had started, that is especially me. That's what I was drawn by.
Got you. And why did you go to New York?
Well, because of the sound that appealed to, I mean, being from Denmark and a band growing up in Copenhagen, we were, of course, looking towards England. It's only an hour and a half away in an airplane. And, of course, out of England came some of the greatest rock bands in history, obviously, and so on. So our early influence came from there. When I started discovering the American sound, like Cheap Trick, Kansas, REO Speedwagon, Eddie Money, Journey, that kind of like FM hard rock that had phenomenal singers, great melodies, perfect for the radio. I was really drawn to that, regardless if I grew up, being massive Queen and David Bowie fans. There seemed to be something in the voice of Steve Perry and the way those songs were that appealed to me as a songwriter. And so that's what caught me, and that's what I was going for.
So besides some of those bands that you named, I'm going to name a couple of other ones that I think are pretty big influences on you and your musical stylings. Let's talk about Thin Lizzy. You're a big Thin Lizzy guy. I think you have a Thin Lizzy tattoo. Is that right?
I have a Phil Lynott tattoo, yeah. Without a doubt, and I still lean myself up against Phil Lynott. And it's interesting enough, as I'm mentioning these bands, they came in and at a time of my life when I already were very influenced by other music. I mean, my mom, I grew up in a divorced family, me and my two brothers, and just my mom. And my mom used to wake us up to Elvis, Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison, Sam Cooke, and Bob Dylan. And Denmark in the 60s were massive hippie movement, country, free love, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm heavily influenced by Dylan, and he's probably my biggest influence. There is the campfire guitar right there, and that is the foundation of Mike Tramp, basically, in anything I have ever done. And a lot of people, like when you mentioned Thin Lizzy and things like that, and then you could go, oh, the boys are back in town or Jailbreak. It's actually Phil Lynot's poetic and also his folk background, that I kind of like is drawn to as much as I like, the Thin Lizzy as a rock band. It is really Phil Lynot's own version of a continuation of Van Morrison, and there again, Dylan, and later on, people like Springsteen and Tom Petty are the people that influenced me as a songwriter. The sound and the stage performance was, with Journey and Van Halen and that stuff but the depth of Mike Tramp with an acoustic guitar and 16 solo albums, you have to go with Dylan and Petty and Neil Young and Springsteen. That's my foundation there.
That makes sense. So yes, Thin Lizzy, but more Phil Lynott.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because he always was Thin Lizzy.
Sure. Oh yeah, for sure. I'm going to bring up another name. I have a hunch that if I say to you, Mike, who is your favorite rock singer of all time? I think you would say Ronnie James Dio. Am I right?
He would be close.
He'd be up there.
Of course, Ronnie, I would say, Freddie Mercury would be coming forth because he came into my life early on. But without a doubt, by the time I hear the first Rainbow album, it just would always represent to me a very honest rock voice that in many ways would never ever be duplicated. There's a true honesty. There's a lot of singers that can go into the voice. They sort of disappear from who they are maybe, and the voice becomes a character. But Ronnie just opened his mouth and out came, force, that to be reckoned with, Also, because I've grown up with my brother being a massive rock fan and having the Sabbath, having the Deep Purple, the Made in Japan, and also having the Zeppelin, they didn't appeal to me in my early years. They would come later on, of course, I was discovered, but they never had the same appeal to me as the other singers had. So when people like Mercury and Dio and, of course, all the American singers came, they appealed to me much more. Now, today, when I put on Made in Japan, I completely admire Ian Gillan's vocal performance, and there, it just didn't appeal to me at that time.
That makes sense.
I was simply just too young to feel that vibe. The same thing goes with Robert Plant.
So you were too young to really feel Robert in his prime or whatever?
I was too young to really understand what Zeppelin is, which is so much of four guys playing together and creating something that no other band would ever be able to do.
It's funny that you say that because I feel like some of the songs that you wrote, you were too young to understand the songs you wrote. Like Wait or When the Children Cry. I feel like you didn't really understand what those meant, like what they really, really meant until way later.
Yeah. And I've said that it's like standing with like a very powerful power tool in your hands and not really aware of the power and all the damage you can do with it once you unleash it. And in lack of better stories, when I tell the audience that when I sat down with an acoustic guitar in my manager's basement in Staten Island, New York in 1985, Ronald Reagan being the president, rock and roll being the king of the world, money was floating on the streets, and I'm writing When the Children Cry. It sort of just doesn't seem really at home. That song is about today, but I wrote it back then. And it's one of those kind of things that you just go, well, I can't really explain it, but I know that I wrote it at that time.
When the Children Cry is a song that knows no bounds, that passes every generation. Like it is relevant to every generation that has ever been and probably will ever be.
Yeah.
That is one of those songs that is just, it stands the test of time in every sense of the word. It lasts forever. When I was younger, obviously, we were all younger. When I was a itty bitty younger, that song, yes, Wait charted higher, I guess, in America.
No, opposite. Nah. Wait was like 8 and Children got to number 3.
I really thought it was the other way around. Well, good.
Yeah.
When the children cry, when that song came on, I would just be in tears, dude. I mean, in tears. It's partially because the song is so meaningful and I guess impactful with the lyrics, but also because, I feel like with art, what we do is we try and graft a little bit of ourselves into whatever art and kind of try and, just in a selfish, maybe just America, but in a selfish way, try to make the song about me somehow, like how does this relate to me or whatever. Well, my parents were divorced and there was a bit of time where I was estranged from one parent and then a bit of a time where I was estranged from the other one. And so that song really spoke to me like I was the children that cried. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
So I really appreciate that song. Just tell me a little bit about how you wrote it. Like, where did that come from in the brain of a young Mike Tramp?
I didn't necessarily really get that deep into the thing about the early songwriting and things like that. And from time to time, and I'm not dissing anyone, but I see these things, songwriting camp. I feel actually it's one of these things that nobody can learn. Either you can or you can't. You can't follow a formula. You can ask AI to write a Black Sabbath song with an ABBA melody. So that is coming from already having that information. But for somebody sitting down with an acoustic guitar and then strumming a couple of chords, you're just doing that at that moment. And Mike Tramp has never written a song that had a pre-idea. I'm the kind of guy that within the first two, stroke with the guitar pick, I'm also singing a melody. So they go together. And once I've established the melody and there's a verse, there might be a bridge and a chorus, then I will go to the lyrics. In a lot of cases, I will have lines while I was doing the song. Had lines, that sounds wrong. I was, just be singing lines, that somehow would stick with me. And I know that, for example, when the children cry started, when the angels sing.
Oh.
Okay, so that just started opposite. And so it was just one of those. There is absolutely no thought behind it until I started sitting down and writing it. And most of my songs have been basically written within 1 hour and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it has to work very quickly. If you have to go out and search for it, it's almost like it's not meant to be because one line leads to another. I might be struggling with some lyrics at times, but the overall song and the melody will come very, very, very quickly.
Love it.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Warning. Not listening to Fascination Street podcast may cause unexpected side effects. Side effects may include sudden fits of boredom, irrational curiosity about everything you missed, the inability to name your favorite podcast interview, spontaneous ignorance of obscure celebrity stories, talking to coworkers about nothing because you didn't hear the latest episode. Other symptoms may include excessive use of the phrase, "Wait, what happened?" Chronic seriousness with no trace of laughter or delight, unexplainable urge to scroll aimlessly instead of being entertained. In rare cases, not listening may lead to wandering aimlessly through podcast apps, overexposure to true crime reruns, and thinking you're cooler than you actually are. If you find yourself experiencing any of these symptoms, stop what you're doing immediately and download Fascination Street Podcast. Ask your podcaster if Fascination Street Podcast is right for you. Spoiler alert, it is.
Let's get back into it.
Does this face look familiar to you at all?
Yeah, it seems a little familiar.
This is an actor named Eddie K. Thomas. So he has been in like all the American Pie movies. He was in a TV show called Scorpion. He's just been in a ton of stuff. He's been working forever. One of the very first things, if not the first thing, is he was in the White Lion When the Children Cry video. And he went on to do, he probably has 200 movies and TV shows that he's been in, but he got his start working with you.
What's his last name?
Thomas. His name is Eddie K. Thomas.
Eddie K. Thomas. I'm trying to find out whose father, who's...
Oh, because this was a friends and family thing? Let's see here. Who are his parents?
Well, I think that when, the children in those videos are sort of like you were filmed on a playground, and I think it's like Friends of the Record Company and Friends of Our Band. So,
His real name is Edward Kavelsky. I don't know. He was born in New York, and he is Jewish. Edward Kavelsky.
Yeah, I guarantee it's one of the record company's kids.
That makes sense. I love that. That's awesome. You wrote a song We were talking about Ronnie James Dio. You wrote a song called Hymn to Ronnie.
Yeah.
Why did his passing impact you so much that you wrote a song about it?
You know what? I could have written that song about Freddy Mercury. I could have written that song about Phil Lynott, When You Come to My Heroes and things like that. It was at the right place at the right time. It was a sunny day in Denmark. I'm sitting in my brother's apartment. I'm grabbing the guitar, and suddenly I'm sort of getting this idea, because Ronnie is sort of like, in many ways, is sort of like, Lord of the Rings, like in all these different lyrics. That's just the path he took. There wasn't really any like going down on the club and getting drunk in Ronnie James Dio's lyrics. It was more about, riding, like the night on the white horse, like going up the mountain to kill the troll or stuff like that. So I started, jingling the guitar, and then came this line from Sabbath, on a misty May morning. And then I said, you know what? I can go from one line to another one that Ronnie has written, and it being a true hymn to him, because I'm using him to get further with this. And I could probably have done 10 verses. That's how many lines there were. And it was really nice to be jumping from these different lines in the songs and adding small, answers of my own to them. So it just became very inspiring.
Well, it's a wonderful song. Everybody should go check it out. You can find it everywhere. It's called Hymn to Ronnie. Before and during COVID, and I don't know if you still do it, but you had a 2-hour radio show in Denmark. Do you still do it? Do you still have it?
No. Sooner or later, I was running out of things to say.
Well, I have a favor to ask of you, and obviously you can say no, and I'll cut it out. White Lion's Pride album sold double platinum here in America, and that's the album that When the Children Cry was on.
It sure is.
Can I have your permission to play that song in this episode so people can have that throwback?
Yeah, of course you can.
Will you use your radio voice and introduce it like a radio DJ?
Yeah, sure. I don't have to play a game.
Do it.
Hey there, folks. This is Mike Tramp from White Lion, and you're listening to the Fascination Podcast Street, and this is White Lions, When the Children Cry.
Little child, dry your crying eyes. How can I explain the fear you feel inside? 'Cause you were born into this evil world where man is killing man, and no one knows just why. What have we become? Just look what we have done. All that we destroyed, you must build again. When the children cry, let them know we tried. 'Cause when the children sing, then the new world begins. Little child, you must show the way to a better day for all the young. 'Cause you were born for the world to see that we all can live with love and peace. No more president Just look what we have done. All that we destroyed, you must build again. No more presidents and all the wars will end. One united world under God. When the children cry, let them know we tried. It's when the children fight, let them know it ain't right. When the children pray, let them know the way. 'Cause when the children sing, then the new world begins.
I love that song so very, very much. It's one of the songs that is the soundtrack to my life, so I appreciate that. Mike Tramp, you have released, like we said earlier, 16 solo albums and, tons of other music everywhere. You're doing a thing that you've done for the last 3 years, 23, 24, and 25. You have released Songs of White Lion. 2023, you had the Songs of White Lion, and then in 2024, you had the Songs of White Lion Volume 2. And in September of 2025, you have the Songs of White Lion Volume 3. Is everything I said so far correct?
It is correct, yes.
Okay, why did you decide to embark on this project and how difficult was it?
Great question. There's no way around that. I mean, with the 16 solo albums, I think it spells loud and clear that that was the path I was on, and that's my life, and that's what I wanted to do. And I was actually quite happy, regardless if it not been commercially successful or I was playing the big stages, and sometimes it was a little harder than it was easier. But everywhere I went, the poster would always say or include the White Lion logo and things like that. And it was almost, there was no way of sort of escaping that, if I want to use that word. And then bit by bit, there were promoters out there that were sort of like encouraging me to add a couple White Lion songs to the set. And even though my band was more like a E Street band or Heartbreakers, I managed to get a couple of those songs in, and one thing took over from the other. And I finally came to the conclusion that if the world cannot turn without Mike Tramp returning to some sort of White Lion, I'm going to have to sort of make people aware of how it sounds today. Because I was 26 when I recorded the Pride album, and in 2025, I'm 64. So I have gone in and re-recorded these songs close to original, but the way I sound today. So if one wanted to hear how the band sounds today and how a grown-up refurbished version of these songs actually sounds, then these albums are for that. Because in lack of better words, I was talking to someone who had just listened to the new album or the new Volume 3, and he says, of course, I'm very familiar with the songs, but the combination, especially on Volume 3 of the songs, it feels like a brand new album of fresh, energetic rock materials that stand the test of time. And it's actually how I felt too. It does not feel dated. It gives me some hope that I'm not just going out and just running through, the motions and singing these songs. I actually enjoy singing them again.
That makes sense. These songs are almost 40 years old, some of them.
Yeah.
And so it stands to reason that they would be performed differently now, 4 decades later. You've released one of the singles from the newest album, Songs of White Lion Volume 3. You've released Fight to Survive.
Fight to Survive just came out, yeah.
I know I asked you for a huge ask earlier. Can I, just so that people can get an idea of what these quote unquote refurbished versions of these songs sound like, can I play Fight to Survive?
You definitely need to play Fight to Survive because there's a phenomenal video for that song, and it kind of like, it takes you back. This song comes back, is, written in 1983, and of course, is the title track of our first album, 1984. And going back and knowing that the title of your first album would basically be, sort of like the title of your life journey you would be on, is incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely your anthem. I mean, that's for 40 years you have had to fight to survive in the music business and just to keep going. I love it.
The sky is blue, the sun's so warm. It's Lounge Band that's a number the young ones on the loose. And the clock keeps turning, time starts spinning fast. Cooling off this burning fire through the soul. It brings on hope, fight for survival. His thoughts are frantic and it seems he's falling down. He feels the emptiness that pulls him towards the ground. Bring up your shield, raise high your sword, fight to survive. Run, flee for your life, look towards the sun, fight to survive. As you walk along the shore, your thoughts run by. The questions are your empty thoughts stored deep inside. And you feel like thunder, it sends you on the loose. As time keeps turning, life fly by fast. Then you feel you're growing tired. You say no, but towards the sun, fight for survival. Thoughts are frantic and it seems it's falling down. He feels the emptiness that pulls him towards the ground. Bring up your shield, raise high your sword, fight to survive. Run, flee for your life, look towards the sun, fight to survive.
obviously you have a website. Is it MikeTrampOfficial.com? What's the website?
Yeah.
Now, on that website, people can buy vinyl versions of almost all of your records.
It's one of those things, again, that, I'm totally a nostalgic freak, so I want to hold on to the things that still gives us pleasure. And that is, not just giving it to a fan or selling to a fan, but holding it in your hands and pulling it out and reading the credits. It just makes you feel that the entire music business or industry has not been completely taken away from you.
Indeed, yeah. If you let your subscription lapse, you might not have music if you're streaming stuff, or if you don't have the internet. But if you got a record player and some electricity, you are golden with all of the old good stuff.
There you go.
Plus, you own it. You don't have to borrow it from anybody on a streaming service. Nope. I can't stand streaming services. You're also on tour, right?
Well, I'm a rock and roll live artist, so we will always play, as much as we can. We just came back from Europe. Now we're in the middle of doing some shows in America. We're a live band. It's what we live and breathe for. So just keep an eye open.
Definitely keep an eye open, because there's a couple of shows here in America coming up. You got 2, 3, 4, 5 in September, a few in October. And those are just in America. And then you're heading to the United Kingdom. You're traveling all over the place, and you're going to just, I guess, end up back in Denmark.
Yep.
So again, Mike Tramp is always, it seems, on tour. So definitely go to MikeTrampOfficial.com and find out if he's going to be playing anywhere near you. And even if he's not, go grab some of those records.
Yeah, discover it for yourself.
They never go bad, and you can check out all of his new stuff. He even does some stuff that is completely in the Dutch language. What's the Dutch language called? Dutch?
No, the Dutch language is from the Netherlands. The Danish language is from Denmark.
Oh, snap. So you do these songs, some songs, you've released records in Danish.
I'm not going to blame it on COVID, but they came out about that. The idea came out that I had suddenly a lot of time at home. I've always, because obviously grown up in my younger years in Denmark, being influenced by some of the singer-songwriters that came out in the 60s. We had our versions of Dylan and Neil Young, and I got inspired by that. And I've always wanted to record and write some songs in my native language. And suddenly the time came, and I've ended up doing 2 albums. And it actually made me much more hungry to go back and then, doing White Line, which of course has been sitting on my back almost all my life.
Sure. Well, wow. Everybody, again, go check out all of the things that are Mike Tramp. You can find him just about everywhere on social media with Mike Tramp Official. If it doesn't say official, it's not him. But definitely check out his website. And if he is on tour near you, you don't want to miss this. The more intimate the venue, the better the show is, I am told.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Mike Tramp, before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about specifically that you wanted to talk about today?
Well, there's a million things, but we'll have to wait till part 2.
We'll have to wait till part 2. Absolutely. Mike, dude, you are the greatest. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic touring around the world schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the chance to reach out to your audience.
You're the best. You have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin.
Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend, subscribe, and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.